There is a painful moment in life when the mask falls off the person you trusted, and you realize the betrayal was not the beginning of your suffering, it was the revelation of it. Betrayal feels like a knife because it cuts through the illusions you held about yourself, about others, and about the world. It forces you to confront the truth you were never ready to see. The people who betray you often do not enter your life by accident. They are mirrors of the parts of yourself you neglect, suppress, or refuse to acknowledge. Their actions expose the relationship you have with your own boundaries, your own worth, and your own inner voice. Betrayal is not merely about what someone did to you, it is about what that wound awakens within you. You get betrayed when you choose to see potential instead of reality. When you treat people as who they could be rather than who they are. When your empathy becomes a blindfold instead of a bridge. And when your loyalty remains in places your intuition already abandoned long ago. Betrayal does not strike out of nowhere, it grows in the silence between your truth and your hope. Painful as it is, betrayal is a form of initiation. It strips away illusions and forces you to confront the patterns inside you that allow these wounds to repeat. The betrayal is external, but the permission for it often comes from within, from the part of you that still fears being alone, the part that believes you must earn love, the part that confuses attachment with devotion. When someone betrays you, they reveal their character, yes, but they also reveal your unhealed places. And through that revelation, you are given a choice: repeat the lesson or rise from it. The path forward is not about trusting less, but about trusting yourself more. The wound is not your end, it is your awakening. Your heart breaks so your vision can finally sharpen. The deception you experienced is the clarity you needed. You were not betrayed because you are weak. You were betrayed because you are finally ready to stop betraying yourself. Betrayal reveals truths you were avoiding because it shatters the comfortable stories you told yourself to feel safe. It forces you to confront the reality you sensed but pushed aside, the instincts you silenced, and the patterns you minimized. Long before the betrayal happened, there were whispers, moments of doubt, small inconsistencies, subtle shifts in energy. But you chose to overlook them, not because you were naive, but because you desperately wanted to believe in the version of the person you created in your mind. You wanted the connection to make sense, the loyalty to be mutual, and the care to be genuine. Yet betrayal arrives as a final reminder that the truth cannot be negotiated no matter how tightly you cling to a comforting illusion. When someone betrays you, they do not introduce chaos into your life. They expose the chaos that was already there beneath your hopes. The truth was always present. Betrayal simply strips away the layers you placed over it. It forces you to see the difference between your intuition and your wishes, between your expectations and their actions. You begin to understand that the person who hurt you had shown themselves many times before, sometimes in subtle ways, and sometimes in obvious ways. But you explained it away each time because acknowledging it meant accepting a painful truth: not everyone you care for is capable of caring for you in return. The pain of betrayal cuts so deeply because it reveals something about you too, the parts of yourself you abandoned while trying to hold on to someone else. It exposes the fears you didn't want to face, like the fear of being alone or the fear of starting over. It unveils the way you valued someone else's comfort over your own well-being, how you silenced your boundaries to maintain peace, and how you convinced yourself that loyalty could transform inconsistency into commitment. Betrayal lifts the veil on these patterns and forces you to ask why you accepted so little in the first place. In this way, betrayal is not just an act done to you, it is a moment that mirrors your inner reality. It reveals the truth about the relationship, but even more importantly, it reveals the truth about your relationship with yourself. It exposes the gap between who you are and what you settle for. And though the revelation hurts, it is ultimately the clarity you needed to stop walking blindly and finally see what was standing right in front of you all along. People who betray you often reflect your hidden wounds because the connections you form are rarely accidental. You are drawn, sometimes unconsciously, to people who mirror the unresolved parts of your inner world. The person who betrays you usually embodies something familiar, something that echoes an old hurt you never fully acknowledged. Their behavior awakens memories of the moments you felt unseen, unimportant, or unprotected. And even though those wounds may be buried deep within you, the betrayal brings them back to the surface with undeniable intensity. It's not that you chose betrayal. It's that you were unconsciously repeating a pattern you were trying to heal. Often, the ones who hurt you resemble the emotional energy of your earliest disappointments. They may carry traits of people who once failed you, distant, unpredictable, dismissive, or self-centered, because your psyche is trying to resolve what was left unfinished. You may feel an inexplicable pull towards someone who mirrors the wound you've been avoiding. This attraction is not a sign of weakness, but of unresolved pain searching for resolution. You don't see the danger because part of you recognizes the familiar feeling and believes that if this person finally chooses you, the old wound will be healed. Instead, that old wound gets reopened, reminding you that healing never comes from recreating the past. People who betray you also reveal the parts of yourself you've pushed into the shadows. They expose the boundaries you failed to set, the voice you silenced, the intuition you dismissed. Their betrayal isn't just about what they did, it's about what it brought to light within you. You realize how much of yourself you gave away, how much you tolerated, and how often you ignored what felt wrong just to maintain the illusion of connection. Their betrayal becomes the mirror in which you see how much you've been betraying yourself long before they ever did. In a painful but profound way, the betrayer is a teacher. They show you where you are still wounded, where you still long for validation, and where you still fear abandonment. They expose the hidden places inside you that crave healing and the emotional patterns that quietly shape your choices. And through their betrayal, you are forced to confront what you once avoided. The truth that healing does not come from others changing. It comes from you outgrowing the wounds that once attracted them. You get betrayed when you fall in love with potential instead of reality, because potential is a story you write, while reality is a truth you refuse to see. Many people enter your life showing fragments of who they could be. Moments of kindness, flashes of effort, brief glimpses of the person you wish they were. And you take those fragments and build an entire future in your mind. You hold on to those small moments as proof that they are capable of becoming the version of them you imagine. But potential is not a promise, it is a projection. And when you choose to love the projection more than the person standing in front of you, you set yourself up for a heartbreak that feels like betrayal, even though the signs were always present. Falling in love with potential means ignoring inconsistencies, minimizing red flags, and creating excuses for behavior that chips away at your well-being. You convince yourself that their distance is temporary, their lack of effort is circumstantial, their indifference is stress, and their broken promises are accidents. You protect their image instead of protecting your heart. You stay loyal to who they might become, while neglecting the reality of who they are choosing to be. And in doing so, you become the one betraying your own intuition long before they betray your trust. People reveal themselves through patterns, not possibilities. The reality of someone is found not in what they say they want to change, but in what they continue to do without effort or accountability. Yet when you fall in love with potential, you cling to hope more tightly than truth. You believe that your love, patience, or loyalty can inspire their transformation. But change cannot be wished into someone. It must be chosen by them. When you forget this, you begin to accept less and expect more, creating a painful imbalance that ends with disappointment. The betrayal hurts so deeply because it feels sudden, but in truth, it is a slow unfolding that you sensed long before it happened. What breaks your heart is not only their behavior, but the realization that you ignored your own instincts to keep the illusion alive. Potential acted like a beautiful story, one that distracted you from seeing the real character of the person you were giving your energy to. When you finally face the truth, you realize that you were never betrayed by their potential. You were betrayed by your attachment to a version of them that never truly existed. Betrayal is an initiation because it marks the moment when the surface of your life cracks open and you are pushed into a deeper understanding of yourself. It is not simply an event that wounds you, it is an experience that transforms you. When someone breaks your trust, you are forced to step out of the realm of illusions and enter the raw territory of truth. This shift is not gentle, it is abrupt, painful and disorienting. Yet it is in this discomfort that you are initiated into a new level of awareness. Betrayal doesn't just change how you see others, it changes how you see yourself. It reveals the parts of you that trusted too easily, forgave too quickly, or held on too tightly. It exposes the innocence you carried, the expectations you clung to, and the wounds you never realized were shaping your choices. Every betrayal marks a threshold, a crossing from your former self into someone wiser, sharper, and more grounded. It demands that you question why you ignored the subtle warnings, why you tolerated the discomfort, and why you continued to invest in someone whose actions contradicted their words. This questioning is not meant to punish you, it is meant to awaken you. It initiates a journey inward, where you uncover your patterns, your fears, and your unhealed places. Through this inner excavation, you begin to reclaim the parts of yourself that you gave away in the name of loyalty or love. Betrayal forces you to develop spiritual and emotional strength. You learn that trust is not something to be handed out blindly, but something to be earned. You learn that intuition is not a whisper to be dismissed, but a compass to be honored. You learn that your worth is not determined by how much you endure, but by how clearly you see yourself. This initiation teaches you to identify the difference between attachment and connection, between manipulation and affection, between promises and reality. It empowers you to choose relationships that nourish you instead of drain you. Through betrayal, you also gain the ability to recognize sincerity, intention, and integrity more quickly. Your eyes sharpen, your boundaries strengthen, and your voice becomes clearer. You no longer ignore inconsistencies, you address them. You no longer shrink yourself to keep peace, you protect your peace. The person you become after betrayal is someone who finally understands that pain is not the end of your story, it is the beginning of your awakening. Betrayal initiates you into a life where you no longer settle for half-hearted love, unclear intentions, or relationships that require you to abandon yourself. The wound exposes where you fear being alone or unloved, because betrayal does more than break your heart. It reveals the spaces inside you that were already fragile, already questioning their worth, already afraid of abandonment. When someone hurts you, the pain is not only about their actions, it is about the emotional void their actions uncover. You begin to see that the intensity of the wound is tied to your deepest fears, the fear that you are not enough, the fear that you will not be chosen, the fear that if someone leaves there will be nothing left for you. These fears often exist quietly beneath the surface of your confidence or independence, hidden even from you, until betrayal pulls them into the light. The wound forces you to confront how much of yourself you sacrificed, trying to avoid being alone. Perhaps you stayed in situations that made you feel small, tolerated behavior that hurt your spirit, or tried to earn affection from someone who gave it inconsistently. You told yourself that patience was love, that effort would eventually be reciprocated, that loyalty would be recognized. But beneath those stories was a deeper truth. You feared that walking away would confirm your worst belief, that you were unworthy of something better. The wound brings this fear forward, not to shame you, but to show you the emotional foundation on which your choices were built. The fear of being unloved is often rooted in a version of yourself you abandoned long ago. The child who didn't receive the consistency they needed, the young soul who learned that love was conditional, or the adult who was repeatedly told through actions that their needs were too much. These old imprints quietly shape your relationships, drawing you toward situations that reflect those original wounds. When betrayal happens, it is not just a present moment collapsing, it is every unresolved moment resurfacing. The pain feels amplified because it touches every layer of your history where love felt uncertain, unstable, or unsafe. Yet the wound, as painful as it is, gives you the clarity to see what you have been carrying. It shows you where you still seek validation instead of connection, where you confuse attachment with love, and where you hold on to people out of fear rather than genuine alignment. The wound reveals your longing for reassurance, not to weaken you, but to help you reclaim the part of you Healing comes when you stop betraying yourself, because the deepest pain you carry is not from the people who hurt you. It is from the places where you abandoned your own truth to hold on to them. You begin to heal the moment you realize that every time you ignored your intuition, minimized your needs, or accepted treatment that wounded your spirit, you were slowly turning away from yourself. The betrayal that came from others may have opened the wound, but the betrayal you inflicted on your own heart is what kept it alive. Healing requires reclaiming the parts of you that you silenced, dismissed, or sacrificed in the hope that someone else would finally choose you. You stop betraying yourself when you listen to the voice inside you that whispers long before it screams. The one that felt uneasy, the one that sensed the misalignment, the one that tried to warn you through tension in your chest or heaviness in your spirit. For too long you convinced yourself that this voice was wrong, dramatic, or untrustworthy, because listening to it meant facing truths you weren't ready to accept. But healing begins when you honor this voice as your guidance, not your enemy. It becomes the compass that steers you away from people who drain you and toward those who nourish you. You stop betraying yourself when you set boundaries that protect your well-being, even if others don't like them. For years you may have tolerated disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional neglect because you didn't want to lose someone. Yet every time you stayed silent when you needed to speak, every time you accepted less than you deserved, you were confirming the lie that your needs were secondary. Healing requires rewriting that belief. It requires knowing that your heart is worthy of respect, your voice worthy of being heard, and your presence worthy of being treasured, not occasionally but consistently. You stop betraying yourself when you stop trying to earn the love that should come naturally. You begin to see that the right people won't require you to shrink, bend, or break to be worthy of them. Healing is choosing to walk away from what hurts, even when your heart wants to stay. It is choosing to trust yourself even when the past taught you doubt. It is choosing you, not as a backup plan, not as an afterthought, but as someone who deserves loyalty, peace, and truth. When you stop betraying yourself, you stop attracting situations that do, and that is when your healing truly begins. In the end, betrayal is not the chapter that destroys you. It is the chapter that reveals you. It is the moment when the old version of you can no longer survive, and the new version of you refuses to stay silent. You rise not because the pain disappears, but because the truth finally becomes louder than your fears. And as you step forward, you realize something profound. Every person who broke you was unknowingly shaping you, sharpening you, preparing you for a life built on clarity rather than illusion. You no longer carry the weight of unanswered questions or the burden of proving your worth. You no longer chase potential, ignore instincts, or silence your own needs. You have walked through the fire not to burn but to be purified. The version of you standing here now is someone who trusts their inner voice, respects their own boundaries, and refuses to abandon themselves ever again. This is your turning point. The moment where your story shifts from being shaped by wounds to being guided by wisdom. You are not defined by the people who betrayed you. You are defined by the courage it took to rise from it. And now you step into a life where you choose truth over fantasy, self-respect over longing, and alignment over attachment. The world will not recognize you immediately, but it will feel your strength, because once you stop betraying yourself, you stop accepting anything less than what your soul was always worthy of, and from this moment on, your life unfolds not as a reaction to your pain, but as a reflection of your power.